on every project. So you get to see up close what they do and how they do it, and so it was great training.
Yeah, it's really just a bigger scope of what we've done for 20 years already. It's just more responsibility, more decisions to make, but you just expand that to 90 minutes versus, as an animator, you do one scene, or I was a supervising animator, we would, focus on sequences, but this is just the entire scope of the film. So it's really not a huge leap from what we're used to. It's just a larger canvas, like Fergal said.
Thanks.
I was wondering, what was the process like? Because the original game obviously didn't have a story at all. It was just these 3 colored balls that you fling across the level. So what was the process like collaborating with Rovio and creating like these characters and personalities from something that didn't have them in the first place?
Well, the first thing is we got a call from our producer John Cohn, who is a producer on Despicable Me, a huge movie, and he talked to us about why don't you guys come in and sort of take a look at the Angry Birds? And like anybody, I think we were both a little skeptical, right? But then John showed us the script written by John Beatty, and oh man, this thing immediately set you off on a tone and gave us an indication that the movie was going to be super funny and that it was going to change all expectations for what anybody thought an adaptation from an app to a movie could be. And I immediately got really excited. I think so did Clay. On our first meeting, we started talking about all the possibilities of what we could do. So the first thing was John Beatty's script, and it was a fantastic start, a great springboard. Immediately set the tone for the comedy, and in some ways it was very freeing to have just a very basic premise. And Rovio were amazing in that they let us blue sky, along with John and John's script, this story that we created and these great characters. With the trick to this stuff, I think, is creating great personalities and great characters, and that's really the key to any great animated movie.
Yeah, I think that was one of the keys to the success. Is when we got onto the show, they already kind of defined who Red was, who Chuck was, who Bomb was, and they built this kind of triumvirate of these 3 characters that really worked well together on the page. And we knew that just reading it, but building the sequences, boarding it, we recorded scratch for the voices and started building the sequences in editorial, and we just realized that these 3 characters worked so well together. And then once we got the actors and the actual, Jason Sudeikis and Josh Gad and Danny McBride, it was really this alchemy that we couldn't have predicted. So I think, like I said, the huge benefit was that they just planted the flag and said, Red is this, curmudgeon. He's this outlier in this community, and that's who he is. And we really built the story around those predefined characters.
As far as characters, did you know who you were going to get as the voices?
Not initially.
No, not initially. We sort of had ideas in our head, and and then we started the casting process, and we were just, like super lucky to get this amazing comedy cast. I can't think of a better comedy cast in a movie in the last 10 years.
It's like a dream come true. And
I've seen the movie and they nailed it.
Yeah,
all their
great.
parts, they nailed it.
Yeah, and a huge part of just getting the talent in, John, our producer, he brought the actors in, he would pitch them the artwork and the outline of the story, and just based on that and the promise of, our collective experience of, making great movies, they all just signed on, and the cast grew bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's an amazing cast, it really is. I pinch myself when I think about who we got to work with.
Thank you.
So how much of the personality of the birds came from the actors versus what you'd already anticipated?
It's an iterative process. So, the first thing was cracking Red's code, in terms of his character's personality. And then, with this movie in particular, you would be a fool as a director not to take advantage of the the huge comedic writing skills that all of our cast really have. You know, they're writers in their own right, they create their own material. And so we had a great idea as a basis from the script, and then moving into storyboards. And then by the time we got to recording, you know, we had a fairly solid idea of the characters, and we had the beginnings of sort of the triangular relationship of Red, Chuck, and Bomb. We knew that every time those three characters were on the screen, it was magic. But then when we got, our cast in, I mean, Jason Sudeikis applied all of his sort of comedic writing ability to the character, and he really, it was like clay to him. You know, he started to shape the character and push it to an even greater comedic level.
You know, we have the pages and we record the lines that we have written, but every time the actor makes it their own, they have to, you know, they're people too, and they have to have a creative input on this thing. And so they, at the end of every session, we're like, all right, just do your thing on these lines. Like, you know, how would you say this line? And most of the time, it just took the quality up and up and up every time that they would do it their own way. It sounded like their voice, and it sounded like they could act within that character that they felt comfortable in. So it was definitely a collaborative thing.
You mentioned that you had the script from John Beatty to work off of as sort of a good starting point, a good premise. What were some of the major changes that you made or additions, just example-wise, in terms of like set pieces or certain jokes or things like that?
I think the whole second half of the movie we did a lot of work on, you know, because the second half of the movie is where the birds take action. They go to Pig Island and they go to rescue their kids. And so, what you want to do in that situation is you have the story point of the characters actually going and rescuing their kids, but you just want to pack it full of entertainment and make it not just action for the sake of action, but wrap the action around a comedic idea, which we did for every single moment, as you've probably seen from the movie. You know, we really created an architecture for the last half of the movie to make what the audience expects from the game, which is firing birds, and rescuing the eggs, into something, completely kind of comedic and special and heightened and just surprising. And so that was where we spent a lot of time. But all kinds of ideas come out of sort of experimentation with both the records and what the actors give us as material, and also the story process.
Yeah, every script, you have your plot, your story points that you're going to go through, but it doesn't always tell you kind of what the themes are. And as you're making the film, you start connecting these dots. Like, hey, there's this thing that we're saying here, and there's this other thing. You can start reflecting those together. We found these through lines after kind of backing up and looking at the story that we strengthened. Red's relationship to his house. That wasn't a big deal in the original, but that became something big. And even characters like the judge, it came from a drawing Francesca drew, our character designer, of one bird standing on another bird. And that became this relationship of the judge and Cyrus, and who is Cyrus underneath there? And he got this joke of sneezing, and so that turned into a thing that he does in the battle. So it's a really organic process, things like that.
The Hug Trader came from clay, from one drawing, one sketch that he did, and that became a running gag in the entire movie, which gets huge laughs.
Yeah, and John was asking us, like, okay, what are ideas that would exemplify this happy bird community? What's an idyllic life? What's a job someone might have? So we came up with a bunch. Hug Trader stuck as one, and you can see he's got this whole arc through the whole movie. It's a very organic thing where you start discovering things that matter more, some things matter less, and so you can't just go kind of blindly from a script. You have to kind of let the movie reflect back what it's trying to say.
So how do you keep the spirit of the game alive while also creating a distinct movie that doesn't feel like a commercial for a video game? I mean, how do you maintain that balance?
Yeah, I played the game a lot. Back when I was making Tangled, I remember that was my decompression at night. I played Angry Birds before I even knew about this movie. And so I played every level. I was really fanatic about it, and I don't just say this because I directed the movies. It was bad. My wife was like, "You have a problem," but I just having played all that, knowing all the characters, knowing the ins and outs of the games, and I, got 3 stars every level, I was really kind of over the top. But, so I guess I'm a fan, and so it's like knowing the stuff that I would recognize in the movie, and it's not big stuff, it's just like little nods and winks and things like, yeah, we know what we're talking about here, but it's not something that we have to make the game into a movie. It's like you start with that idea and then you expand it into a film that we'd want to see. But definitely it makes me happy as someone that knows the game, that there's like little things that people out there are going to get as well.
Character personality, it's Rovio gave us the freedom to, they had created the game, but they basically said to us, create something special for us, something that stands on its own, apart from the game, and that's a whole new world, a whole new a whole new canvas, to sort of illustrate all these characters and bring them to life. So it was about, creating the characters' personalities and making them really funny and just having fun with it. And you forget about the game. We didn't even really, think about the game after we extracted the icons from it. The basic icons of Red, Chuck, Bomb, Matilda. And then when we started to work and create the personalities of the characters, it just took on its own life. It just went to the next level.
What was was there any type of intentional effort to integrate science into the film, like the comment about the T-Rex and how the birds are related to the T-Rex? That was okay. The epic size of the eagle's bladder, how accurate was that? That was really, okay, that was funny. Birth control of birds and bees fertility clinic that was there. I mean, you had some interesting social commentary, I suppose, but was there any effort to have, and the bird that imprinted on the father, was there any effort to be scientific in any of the representation?
Zero.
So it was all just accident, okay.
Well, it was all designed, to create laughs, and we just ask ourselves on every moment in the movie, what's funny about this, and John Cohen, our producer, would really like pushed us to like squeeze more out of it, squeeze more, make it funnier, like how we squeeze the last drop of comedy out of this little moment or that moment, so.
Yeah, so a lot of it may have started with, there are scientific facts that we know about, but how do you make that an entertaining thing? And even the birds themselves, from the beginning, we didn't call them just birds. They were bird-like creatures to us, and so we gave us the liberty to give them like hands that could turn into wings when we needed them, but they were very much their own kind of species, aside from a normal bird that we would know in our world.
One of the first days they brought in a bird specialist, an ornithologist who knows every single detail about how a bird is put together, everything from the way their wings and feathers sheathe to their bone structure, and he started sort of explaining, sort of how a bird walks and why their skeleton does this and why they hop, and we were like, no. And these guys are like creatures, they're like representations of birds in this world, but they're like little characters.
Yeah, and we really wanted to approach it from a cartoony, fun animation perspective versus like making realistic anatomical birds. That would just limit the comedy and the performance that we could do.
So we both had the idea that they were very much like Muppets, like even their hands, are like they're part wing, but they're also part gloved hand.
Yeah, and that Muppet comparison, it goes back to Francesca's designs of the characters. They just, to me, always felt like something you would make in a craft room with feathers and ping pong balls, and they're real movies.
Can you tell us a little bit about the filmmaking process and your relationship with Rovio from the beginning throughout the production?
Sure. Well, from the very beginning, we had one of the original founders of the company, Mikhail Head, working with us. And they gave us just a really long leash to be able to sort of create the world and the characters that we wanted to create. And they were really, you know, they were precious about some things, but then in other things it was just like, have at it, you know. And obviously the iconic look of the birds, we tried to preserve that, you know, because one, they're brilliant in the design. Those dark eyebrows and those big eyes and that red bird. Red is like the strongest primary color in the movie. There isn't much red. If you look at the movie, there isn't much red. He stands out. And, you know, the DNA from all the other characters, design-wise and also personality-wise, sort of comes from Red. So they actually helped us a lot at the beginning because they gave us all the material that they used to create the game, and including the noises and the sounds of the birds, and also, you know, the artwork from the game, and also from the Toon series that they did. So, like, we had a lot of support from Rovio in Helsinki.
Yeah, it's a really unique movie situation where Rovio financed the entire film. There's no other outside investor. Rovio controls the property and the funding of the film. And we didn't have some executive committee that we had to go to, or a board of trustees or anything like that. It was Fergal, me, our producers, John Cohen, Catherine Winder, our executive producers, David Mazel and Mikhail Head, our writer, John Vitti, and Miko Pola, who also helped develop the story. And that's pretty much the team that worked on breaking this story, putting the film together. So we had to make ourselves happy, and that was kind of a new experience for me, where you are making the films for yourself instead of for a larger entity that expects something in return. It's like, it was really a film that we wanted to make and we wanted to see in the theater. So it was a very unique situation from what I'm used to.
Is it safe to say that you went into the project knowing what you didn't want rather than knowing what you did want?
That's a good question.
I think we always started from a place of what's fun to us, what do we like in movies, and we both have, you know, a very broad range of experiences on the films that we work on, and also the films that we like. But it's funny, from day one, we always talked about the stuff that really that we really love in movies, and the stuff that we love to see. You know, it always came from that place. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think something we definitely didn't want was to make a movie that parents bring their kids to and just check out and wait for the movie to be done. You know, because we have to go see these movies. We've seen this movie thousands of times by now, probably, and we still enjoy it. And that's something really important to us, is to make a film that we enjoy. You know, not just a 4-year-old audience. And so we went for a broad audience, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you.
Talking about the characters, you have this tagline for the movie, which is kind of like, why are these birds so angry? Can you talk about sort of coming up with, because we get in one of the early anger management scenes, we get sort of like why each of these birds has anger issues. How did you go about kind of coming up with the backstories for these, with the flashbacks and everything?
Well, definitely it started, you know, based on the game. You know, each chuck is fast and bomb explodes. Red is a unique bird in the game because he doesn't really have a skill, at least in the earlier iterations of the game. But we started with that. We knew Matilda, you know, as a character in the game, fires these eggs that explode. And so you kind of back up from there and okay, what's going to stick these characters in this class as a result of these kind of skills that they have. So Chuck is the speed, Bomb explodes, but you know, you put a twist on it where Bomb can't really control it. It's, you know, what do we call it? Intermittent explosive disorder?
Intermittent explosive disorder, yeah.
Yeah, that's a real term you can look up on Wikipedia. And, you know, it's just taking those concepts and building some complexity of the character around that. And we like the idea that, you know, this is a happy community that doesn't really, they're not really in touch with their anger, you know, and making that part of the story of like, you know, this is an emotion that this whole culture is ignoring as a possibility. Not necessarily that it's the only thing to do, but it's appropriate in some instances. And
anger management class is like the perfect scene to sort of introduce the new cast of characters to the world. People think they know the characters from the game, but really they're just icons. So we saw it as a great opportunity to sort of really delve into each of their personalities, and most importantly, we have a great sort of comedic situation because Red doesn't want to be there at all. He just doesn't want to be there, and so right from that point, you know, you have comedic tension, and all the other characters you can sort of introduce off that sort of comedic tension, and it just makes him more and more annoyed. You know, so we had the idea early on that Matilda was like a sort of a reformed angerholic, that there was something brewing underneath the surface, that these characters are drawn together in this situation, that they're very alike, you know, in some ways. But it was a great opportunity to sort of, you know, to introduce the characters to the world in our world in the movie.
It's kind of it's funny when you think back on your influences for these things, but we talked about like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Full Metal Jacket, where this kind of normal-ish, or at least a person who perceives himself as normal is put into the situation where it's like really wild and really kind of beyond their experience.
And the Chuck situation where we see the flashback, and you know, it's that came out of like sort of organically came out of boarding, you know, and we started off with the idea that Chuck, you know, Chuck is telling a lie, you know, that's not actually, you know, actually what happened. So like we just came up with these funny situations for Chuck, where he really browned off this police officer in the town for speeding around, and it came out of that, you know. It was very organic, you know, and also we wanted to, you know, it's tricky with dialogue scenes and animation. You want to make them entertaining, you want to make them visual as much as possible. So we used, you know, that as a sort of an example to explore our world and tell the audience, this is special. You don't normally see these kind of like flashback moments in animated movies in such a stylized way, with the track that we have, the sound of the police and all that, you know. So.
For the personality of the birds, did you base it off people you know, or did it just organically grow as you were working on the script?
A bit of both, always. I mean, everything we do is based on life experience and things we've seen and done and been to and people we've met.
Yeah.
With Red, we focus a lot on making the things that bother him things that anyone would relate to. You know, because if you build a character that's angry and he's mad at everything and for no good reason, it's kind of hard to relate to that. So we put him in situations where it's like, yeah, I get it. So maybe, you know, I haven't kicked a little bird in the ocean, but you know,
we had whole story sessions,
yeah,
where we would sit with the crew, and just the theme of the story session was what makes you angry. You know, and it was great fun to sort of go around the room and sort of, you know, hear from people like the little things that when they go through their day makes them mad.
Yeah, we gave the crew assignments on the weekend to just go observe what annoys you over the weekend and bring it back. So we had a board on the wall, you know, like telemarketers and lines at Starbucks, and you know, some of those things end up going into the movie.
Leaf blowers
relate to it.
on a Saturday
Yeah,
morning.
exactly. Those things can relate to things we can see in a bird world. So definitely personal experience went into Red. And then Chuck, that's a hard one. I don't know anyone as manic as Chuck. But it was an assignment that we just gave Josh Gad, and we said, you know, talk as fast as you can and improv as fast as you can. And that voice you're hearing in the movie is his normal rate. I mean, it's amazing that he can act in front of the mic, be expressive, and be funny all at the same time. He's an extraordinary talent for that.
And Chuck's got no verbal filter. You know, it's just verbal diarrhea coming out of him. He can't contain himself, you know. And that came from like the basic idea in the game that Chuck is, he moves really fast, you know, he darts around the place. And so we thought, what if we applied that same idea to his thinking and the way he expresses himself? And we sort of pitched that to Josh. And then Josh sort of came up with, you know, the great Chuck that we have now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, thank you guys all for coming today. This was great. Thank you, Clay and Fergal, for participating.
And that's really our benchmark for
Yeah. So you just
all
have
this
a
stuff.
focus